Dr Craig Heilmann. Craig, kia ora, how are you?
Good morning, Andrew. Great to see you.
Hey, I think our countries have got closer together, not by tectonic movement, but certainly in terms of a political movement. In fact, some statements from both of our prime ministers. Sounds like they had a fun, even bromantic weekend in Queenstown, and saying that relationships between New Zealand and Australia have never been better. Certainly, they've been a lot worse recently. What do you think? Are the relationship between the two countries pretty good at the moment? What's your thoughts?
Well, I just want to say I hope their wives knew where they were because they clearly like each other a lot. That was, in fact, that Mr. Albanese said he wanted to give him a cuddle, and I think Christopher Luxon did give him a cuddle.
Yeah.
So they obviously like each other very much. Well, at least for the cameras, they like each other very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Are relationships better between the countries? Maybe it's any port in a storm territory again, Andrew. Maybe when you don't have that many friends in the world, you're less selective about who your friends are. I mean, these guys are actually very different. They come from very different sides of the tracks, don't they?
Yeah.
What they share in common, not necessarily politics, but maybe they do. Maybe they share some stuff in common. But yeah, we still don't agree about certain things, the
Yeah.
501s, for example.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, although things are a little bit better between us as nations, both significant trading partners, of course, of each other, and, as you say, any port in the storm. The Aussies getting the 10% tariffs and us having to wear 15%. I mean, that's got a stick in the throat, doesn't it? But yeah, Albo seemed to have a smile on his face over that one as well.
yeah, well, look, if it was up to me, mate, we'd handicap the All Blacks every year during the Bledisloe in the same way the Americans handicap New Zealand. Give Australia a 5-point start.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, both of them are going to have to wear the fact that this is Trump's policy for the world, and
Yeah.
I don't know how Australia skated by. I think we let the beef in. I think that was probably it. Yeah, so we seem to be slightly more favourite.
Yeah.
You've got the anti-nuclear thing as well in New Zealand, so that doesn't make probably the Americans happy.
Yeah,
But
totally.
yeah, look, I don't think I think it'd be fair to say neither country at the moment is America's favourite in the world.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the big announcements, now this wasn't necessarily an announcement from the summit, but certainly at the end of the summit, Anthony Albanese has made a statement on behalf of the Australian government that they will be supporting a remit for a Palestinian state at the UN meeting in September. Winston Peters, on the other hand, and now he wasn't part of the bromance, but he has come out with a statement to say that this is certainly something that New Zealand will look at. There'll be cabinet discussions about this, and he said that this is definitely on the table, although not confirmed as yet. I notice, Craig, that nobody had the guts to mention anything like this until they had a tariff deal.
That is a great observation. I think you're bang on the money on that one. Albo did get his tariff deal first before he said anything, and you're right, New Zealand did as well. Yeah, what do we say about that? I just hope these guys don't end up on the wrong side of history with this thing. Israel is the only democracy, effectively in the East and the Middle East, and I just think they actually need support. Now, that's not to say that everything they do is right. And maybe this new plan about sort of, taking over Gaza is, and look, I said it's only temporary. Obviously, they're trying to root out Hamas. And despite the fact that our governments are saying, look, Hamas would have no role in a future government of a Palestinian state, I just don't know how workable this thing is. And is this a state that's going to be allowed to be armed? Because presumably the whole point of having sovereignty is you're allowed to protect your territory and be armed.
Yep.
The Israelis are armed. Are we really going to have people literally a few miles apart with missiles pointed at each other?
Yeah.
I just don't know how realistic this is in the end.
And honestly, you talk about democracy, and if there was a two-state solution, there would need to be democratic elections on both sides of those borders. Having said that, given what has happened over the last couple of years, it would be difficult for anybody with a pro-Israel view or even a neutral view to get elected in Gaza, I imagine.
Oh, I would imagine that's absolutely the case. I just think you'll get Hamas back in another form. I just can't see this being a reasonable, feasible way of doing things. And I think we have to put ourselves in the Israelis' position to some degree too. See, it's easy in Australia. We're surrounded by water. So is
Yeah.
New Zealand. I mean, if missiles are going to get pointed at us, we're going to see them coming over the horizon. And
Yep.
we have over the horizon radar in Australia, so we know what's coming. We can see ships coming, all sorts of things. But look, it's not going to be as easy as that for Israel. The Americans, by the way, can exist in North America happily because the Canadians are above them. But if Canada all of a sudden became a radical Islamic state, I don't think the Americans would tolerate it at all.
Yeah.
And so I just think we're asking Israel to do what probably nobody else on the planet would be willing to do. Even the Europeans are not really willing to do it with Russia, are they? Because they want to use Ukraine as a buffer state. So we're asking for something that I think I don't see how it's workable.
Now, not only Australia and potentially New Zealand, but there's been a number of countries that have come out and said they will be supporting a call for a Palestinian state. In the last wee while. I mean, a lot of these our allies, and certainly historically, they have been our allies as well. Is this to do with the Palestinians at all, or is this just punishing Netanyahu in some ways?
I think it's punishing Netanyahu. I think it's an attempt to poke Trump in the eye because he's been poking everybody else.
Yep.
And I also think that it's domestic politics. Well, certainly for Australia, it's domestic politics. Despite the fact our government has piles of seats they could lose and still be in charge of Australia, the fact is that they're under pressure in many inner city seats from very vocal, strong Islamic communities. And, they need to placate often. I mean, let's face it, Australia was one of the only countries after October 7th that let thousands of Gazans into Australia on holiday visas, knowing they were never going to go back to Gaza. We didn't properly vet these people. We have no idea whether any of them might have been part of committing atrocities. We don't know. And yet Australia, why did we do that? Well, it's playing domestic politics. So to some degree, this is the problem in Australia. But I do think there's a kind of a globalist agenda here too, to kind of poke Trump in the eye and say, hey, because Trump has been rolling over just about everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Now, and this is a key difference between New Zealand and Australia in terms of political influence. Certainly on the left of New Zealand politics, Te Pāti Māori and the Greens both supporting a Palestinian state and both strongly against the actions of Israel. But these are very minor parties who are not part of a coalition. And even if you look at recent polls, not necessarily likely to be part of one in the future. I suppose this is the key difference, that in Australia this is a political reality where, yes, it's certainly a voice in New Zealand, but not a politically credible one.
No, but I do think if you had a Labor Party in power today, there'd be a much more strident approach, I think, from New Zealand in the same way there has been from Australia. Australia has not been a good ally to Israel. I don't know whether we think of Israel as a friend anymore or not, but I think the Israelis well know Australia is not a great friend to them. Yeah, sadly. And so, but I think the Labor Party just does the numbers in Australia and says, look, there are a lot more Arabs and Islamic people in Australia than there are Jewish people. And the Jewish people often are voting Liberal or thought to be because they're in those kind of seats or whatever. And they've just done the sums and gone, look, it's for us, it's a zero-sum game. We're just better to take the votes that we know about that are going to vote Labor and just ignore this community. And so that's what they've done. And they've made some mealy-mouthed statements about anti-Semitism, but never without saying Islamophobia in the same breath. Yeah. And we've got a problem with anti-Semitism in Australia. We don't have a problem with Islamophobia, as far as I can tell. We have a problem with anti-Semitism. We don't have mosques being set on fire. We have synagogues being firebombed. Yeah. And so I don't think the Australian government's being very wise in. I would have preferred something like the New Zealand government. Let's go away and study it. Let's have a think about it, But they've gone the way they've gone.
And hey, there is points of difference, and New Zealand often says that we have an independent foreign policy. Yes, we have strong allies, including Australia and, to an extent, the US, depending on the week. But actually, to make decisions independent, just because our allies vote a certain way at the UN doesn't mean that New Zealand has to, but we wait and see in that regard. Craig, appreciate your insight, your analysis on this topic. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bless you, Andrew. Great to talk, mate.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.